yesterday. Uh, you saw this Daz image. So this is from my Barbarian game, and we rendered out an image, and we saw how intensive it was. It's a very graphically intense file. I am going to change my view and see if there's potential for one more background setting image for the opening of this game. I've done several already. We rendered one yesterday, but I like to have a few options. In case you're wondering why there's nobody on the screen today, it is because yesterday so many programs running at the same time was just causing a lot of errors and a lot of lag. So I'm trying to reduce any unnecessary video so that things run smoothly and we don't get interrupted. Um, okay, so let me keep looking at these cameras. That one could work too. I might see what it looks like if I change which characters are visible in the scene. So I'll turn off these villagers and I'll turn on these villagers. That's the beauty of groups. In DAZ, they work just like layers. Of course, I have a lot of characters in here. There's probably 10 characters in each villager group, maybe more. So when it's reloading those images so that they're visible, it does have a bit of a delay, especially when I'm running so many softwares at the same time. All right. So there's the blacksmith, and there is that lady. Do I like that? I do like the blacksmith. Um, yeah, let's actually, I'm going to turn off the animals as well. You have to keep in mind that not just lighting causes a lot of heavy processing for file size and for rendering, but also every object in there is creating its own set of UV and shadow, and if you don't keep that in mind, then you may be surprised when you find out exactly how long it takes to render a scene. This right here is an example of the dangers of using third-party assets. You'll notice that my blacksmith has part of his head popping through his hair. And that's because I used a free asset I downloaded, probably from ShareCG. Nothing against them, but the free stuff does tend to have lower quality or a little bit sloppier programming. And so, to my eternal regret, this slider I downloaded for free, which causes a cranial ridge on the Genesis model, is always set for default since it's been installed. So every time I load a Genesis with my external hard drive with my third-party assets, it creates a ridge on the head that I have to fix every time I load a model. So very mixed feelings about that particular free asset, and I may just end up removing it and never using it because it's been an incredible nuisance. So that is a danger you face when you download third-party CGI assets from people you don't know. So I do recommend. I mean, when we're talking about quality, I hate to say it almost because I don't want to sound like I'm advertising or promoting a particular program, but if you're looking at 3D assets, especially for DAZ, the assets that DAZ sells tend to be higher quality and more reliable. Not always, but at least DAZ has a customer service department. They might not be the fastest, but they eventually get back to you if there is a problem with an asset, which is something that not all other vendors offer. Anyway, I won't ramble any further. What I will do, though, is take a look at which villagers are in this group that I think should be present. I'm going to turn off the hypnagogue. We can't see him. Couldn't see that Genesis 2 female either. Most of these characters are in other parts of this little field and village area. So I'm just going to save some stress on the render. Okay. So we really only need Genesis and Genesis 3. The rest of these characters aren't visible. And you might think, oh, why go to all this trouble? Trust me, it will save you time in the render. Uh, Very, very much so. Okay, so this could be a good shot. So yesterday I did not follow the best practices, and that's because I was really overeager and I just wanted to render out to NVIDIA iRay right away. You should do a test render technically in 3 to light. It's less intensive, it's faster, and you can see any issues that might be present. You can decide if that's good enough resolution for your game, especially when you're running. If I was running a full 3D game, then I'd probably render with 3 to light unless I really knew that that look of NVIDIA was going to fit the aesthetic of the game. So if I go back to my render settings, let's see, progressive, active viewport, those are all good settings. You don't really have to play with 3 to light too much. Let's see how long it takes to render. And if you're wondering what else I'm going to be doing today, I can tell you that I'll also be looking at my soon-to-be released beta game, Gagnon. We're going to look at that. If you're in my class, you know that I've gone over that and shown you guys and gotten beta testing feedback from you as well. We'll be looking at writing because this game that I'm creating background assets for needs a script because it's a visual novel. That means it's predominantly dialogue driven. I should mention that it's not just a visual novel, but since it's going to be a few months before this is released, I don't want to give too much out about it yet. So we can see that this render has gotten to about 11% for optimizing images. We're just going to let that run for a little bit. And I'm just going to take a peek at some other stuff like, this is going to be like super existential. Let's see. This is going to be like super existential. Cool. It's like a video and a video and a video and a video. Okay. That's another trick we'll talk about later when we're talking about self-promotion of your work. It's a difficult thing, self-promotion, because I know I personally don't want to look like I'm trying to yell "yay me" to the echoing, empty universe of the internet all the time. I don't like to be sleazy. I don't like to use cheesy sales tactics. That's just me. Some people are wonderful self-promoters. And I have done self-promotion to death. And I have been fully committed and drank the Kool-Aid and did the self-promotion thing and the schmooze. And it's very easy to get carried away doing that. I think if you keep in mind the tips I gave the other day about networking, just be honest and genuine. Don't be friends with people because you think they can help your career. Be friends with people because you actually have similar interests and work in the same industry, and that's going to just increase your pool of contacts and your chances of getting either freelance or studio work. But others might say, they might say, kiss butt to anyone who's successful and glom on to anybody who's had any measure of success in the industry. I don't recommend that. I like to work with people that I respect and admire. So don't make that mistake. It often is very transparent. And you all need to be doing networking. In fact, even though we usually cover networking in one of the last modules before you graduate, definitely take the time to learn how to network even during your program. I'm specifically speaking towards my students, but even if you're not a student of mine or you're in a different video game program, definitely take the time to foster positive connections, build positive relationships that you can network with. When you have a group of like-minded, similarly skilled friends that you respect and trust, then again, you're going to have more exposure. They're going to hear more about job placements or hear about uh, openings coming up in places where they work or with clients they have. And you never know. There's nothing wrong, even if you're too busy to take a job, referring someone whose work that you respect and trust and you don't think is going to make you look bad. So vouching for someone. I've done that and helped lots of people get jobs. I've received jobs because other people vouched for me. So there's a lot of credit in word of mouth still. That's something that we don't think about or talk about much. Everyone wants to figure out how to advertise and become famous or rich from advertising on Instagram or Facebook. And not that you shouldn't promote yourself on Instagram or Facebook, but if you're trying to make that your ticket to fame, that is a gamble to say the least, um, if I'm being polite. But there's still lots to be said for positive word of mouth. And you can use social media to spread positive word of mouth. When you like and respect another person's work, you can talk about it. And that also fosters a positive relationship between you and fellow professionals. So don't underestimate that. This is still rendering. What else can we look at? So today would normally have been day 13 in the HTML and JavaScript and social networking program. Let's just skip over that. I'm not going to bother looking at that right now, simply because I've already spoken with my students for that. So let me just make sure all of my software and programs and stuff. Oh, chat. All right, so it's important to remember your settings. Yes, share the screen. Share the screen. So you guys have been watching me ramble for a while. Crap. All right. So we've got our Zoom attendees all set up now. Um, so we're just rendering out. So like I was saying, networking, important. Don't alienate your coworkers. Don't alienate your colleagues. All those things. In this case too, I'm used to the 3 to light actually rendering faster than this, but it's because I've got such a massive file. As I mentioned yesterday, when you have things grouped up, it's like creating layers in DAS, and so I've got most of them turned off. So what you see here is actually just a small percentage of the number of assets that are in this scene, which I intentionally created because I knew I wanted to generate several images from the same setting with the same background characters and choose the ones I thought would be best as background images for my visual novel levels of my barbarian game. So that's why, even though it doesn't look like there's a lot of characters in this scene, it's taking a lot of time to render. If I had more characters visible, it would be even longer, and it would be even slower, because every object in this scene is creating a shadow, UV pattern. It reacts to lighting, and that lighting has to be calculated by the program and by the processor when it's rendered. So it's just going to take a little bit of time. And I'll probably get to showing how to use that today as well, although we may end up focusing on the writing. We will see. I'm not sure if all of my chords are connected correctly. That's right, you guys get to listen to me sing even more now at home than you would have in the classroom. I apologize if it sounds like I'm more lively. We're usually so used to focusing on our own games and assignments. But that's how it is. That is how it is. Generally, making games or making entertainment, making comics, making visual novels, it's very isolating. So I would say that the people that will actually be able to thrive the most during this whole shutdown for however long it is are the people that are already used to that. Um, against my better judgment and decision making, often feel guilty for being shut in and away from society and working on the computer as much as I do. Now it actually kind of comes in handy. I just got to remember to stay active, which everyone should do. Make sure you try and get some exercise. Um, I'll probably be, making some quick runs on the treadmill between sessions and classes and stuff here. So anytime during the day that you see something else running on the channel in autopilot between lessons, it's probably because I'm attempting to get some physical activity in my muscles. Um, and so that's how that is. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that, uh, you know, there's things I can show you, there's things I can't show you. Specifically, the fact that I have students and we have private conversations. So uh, those things will not be shown or streamed, but or recorded, I should say. But everything that is ethically shareable, I won't hold back any information. I won't not tell you how to do something. Um, but that's how that is. Of course, questions and comments, things that you need help with, you're always welcome to ask. In the meantime, this is almost done rendering. For the love of God. Let's see how it is. Let's hope it works. But if nothing else, this can be educational to compare about the difference in time and quality for rendering between 3-to-Light and NVIDIA iRay. So those are the two render engines I use most often in DAZ. There are other options. There are ones that are more basic that show more what the window looks like in the software as opposed to being rendered out with more detail and lighting. Those render engines are also good for doing quick tests of composition. So we're going to see as this image appears. This will be a background for a game. And again, this is probably going to take a couple minutes. Bear with me, folks. There's a lot of software running that's very heavily graphically intensive. Streaming live video slows things down too. So it will get done. Oh, admit. All right. So need to get zoom back up. Okay. There we go. All right. And I'm just going to pause this for now.